Well, I guess I'm live. Oh, had a little problem there. So hope you're doing well. I've been has been on here in a while. I've been super busy. So joining you live from Managua, Nicaragua. And I'm now living in Managua, which is good. I've been doing Instagram lives every day because that's really easy because I can do that from the stadium where I'm working with the national team for baseball practice. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about um, the two biggest things I see people holding people back. And first of all, I am not a very good marketer. I'm supposed to have a niche. I'm supposed to have one thing that I do and advertise that I solve one specific problem. But I've been doing this for so long. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. I've worked with people with autoimmune disease, improving athletic performance, you name it, career changes, like almost like lifestyle counseling or life event counseling. It's very hard for me to market for one specific thing. But it doesn't matter whether you're trying to lose weight or it's autoimmune disease or you've got fatigue. Most of the people I attract are generally people that have burned themselves out, hard charging people. That's generally what I attract. But the two biggest factors I see that are holding people back are number one, they live an indoor life, period. Their circadian rhythm is broken. If you dive into this, if you get on ChatGPT and start typing in circadian rhythm health, sun exposure and health, um, it's literally pretty much cut and dry that the number one reason most people are struggling today is because they just live 90% of their day indoors in front of a screen. And that's the big one. That is the big one. You know, people that are burned out, they're tired, their hormone profile's all messed up. They're having blood sugar issues. Literally, it's they don't get outside enough. So we want to start with some simple things, 10-minute walks after every meal. We start with that, you know, getting them out in the morning to build some sun tolerance, getting their vitamin D levels up. Really simple stuff, nothing crazy. If they can't get outside as much as they need to, that's where we get a red light, you know, like the fire wave that I have from EMR Tech. You can go to vitalitybrotherhood.com, products and services at the top of the page. There's EMR Tech fire wave there. I use it in the background of my room all day. I leave it on all day with Rommel when he's inside. You know, I leave it on at night so I don't have to, you know, turn the overhead lights on. And then once I'm ready to go to bed, I turn it off. I've been using that for years. It's literally been on almost 24 hours a day for the last like 4 years. The thing's indestructible. I take it with me when I travel. That way you get some red in your life. We used to be able to have incandescent bulbs, which had a little bit of red in them. The problem with the modern lights is they just don't have any red at all. So it's just literally blue. And blue by itself, there's nothing wrong with blue light, but by itself, it spikes cortisol, gets you going. It gets a stress response going, which we're already under enough stress with the phones and all that stuff. So you don't want to have just blue light in your life, especially at night. So getting people's light environment right, that's a big part of why I see most people failing, no matter what their issue is. And then the second issue is not being able to regulate nervous system and not being able to relax, not being able to shut off. We're constantly scrolling on our phone. We're constantly have notifications. We're in constant contact. I mean, we're flying down the highway at, you know, 85 miles an hour. You know, our biology is just not set up for that kind of stuff. And then people will talk about breathing. And one of the biggest things is people over breathing or under stress because of the breathing pattern that they're stuck in. So you'll tell people to do a breathing drill, but a lot of it is their actual structure, their strategy that they're using to live their life doesn't allow them to breathe and exhale. For example, me, I'm very extended. My rib cage is flared. I have to do a lot of work like backwards bear crawls, different things to allow my rib cage to move so I can actually exhale and get my air out. Like I round over a stability ball. So that's my strategy. I tend to be an overbreather. I tend to be in a state of stuck in this like extended pattern where I can't exhale. And when you exhale, you're actually relaxed. So I have to do things to kind of open things up and get my rib cage moving. We've got the other extreme where people are really more of a skinny person, where they're like a tall tube. And you'll see people, they have this little bit of a pooch belly, and that means their guts are kind of going down and forward. And basically what's happening to them is they're getting compressed. So it would be like having me stand on your chest all day. So if you tell somebody like that to relax, they have a really hard time. I have one lady I was working with before who basically her whole life, she was told to exercise more because her resting heart rate was really high, her blood pressure was really high. She had a lot of pelvic floor issues. She ended up having a surgery where they actually messed the surgery up, and she had to have her pelvic floor removed. And the more she exercised, the worse her higher her heart rate got, her resting heart rate. And the more fitness she did, the worse she got. Well, what was happening is she was just, all her guts were basically going down and forward, and she was getting tight through the chest. So we had to do some things where we laid her on her belly. We did some crocodile breathing. We started doing, in order to kind of use gravity to spread her guts out and get her to open her chest up and open that chest up and get rid of some of that compression so she could actually breathe and relax. And we did a lot of child's pose breathing. We switched all her exercises to seated so that her pelvic floor would actually have some support. And she was able to get her resting heart rate down by like 20 beats in like 3 weeks with less exercise. So the exercise she was doing on the elliptical and the treadmill was actually making her worse. So, there's a lot of general things you need to do, but there's a lot of nuance. And that's why I'm not very good at internet marketing, because you're supposed to have this magic program that like fixes a problem, but there's so many little things like the shape of somebody's rib cage or their breathing strategy that play a big role in the specific advice they need, and it needs to be tailored to the individual. And it's very hard to do that. I mean, you can, but I'm not the kind of person that sits down and like goes through 18 different scenarios in a program, and most people are not going to follow that advice. So that's why I like to work with people in a small group. I like to mentor them and coach them through this stuff. And honestly, the basic 5 fundamentals, most people just don't even have that down. Once you've got, like, I worked with one lady who was wanting to try all these fancy diets and all these macro things and stuff. And I was like, are you eating a protein at every meal? She's like, no. And I'm like, you don't need to do any kind of fancy diets or macro anything until you've got a protein at every meal. And eventually we ended up not working together because she wasn't willing to do the basic fundamentals. She was always wanting to chase like all these different fancy things. And she'd change like every 2 weeks. Well, I heard this podcast and I'm going to try this. And I'm doing that. And she would never make any traction because she wouldn't do the basics, which are basically get outside 3 times a day, get the lights off at night, eat a protein at every meal, drink high quality water, preferably spring water that has all sorts of the minerals that you need in it, have social connection. Those are the big fundamental things that you need to start with. And then depending on what you're dealing with, there's different nuances for different things, depending on what your goals are. But most people, if they just fix their circadian rhythm, they took getting the lights off at night seriously, and they learned how to regulate their nervous system. They learned how to, change their breathing strategy or regulate their breathing strategy through changing their shape and getting able to make the rib cage be able to move, expand, and also contract, that pump action handle action, getting the rib cage to move in a way that helps them breathe and relax. One of the simple things you can do is just put the tongue in the roof of your mouth, breathe through your nose while you're driving in the car, while you're in the store. All those sort of things are very, very helpful to get you going in the right direction. So in summary, the 2 biggest things I see is people just don't go outside enough. They got the lights on at night. They're on their phone too late. And then the other one is they don't know how to chill. They don't know how to relax. And a lot of it has to do with their breathing strategy and their structure. And so we need to do things in the workout that actually help improve breathing mechanics, as opposed to traditional weightlifting, weight training, strength training, can exaggerate or can make certain breathing patterns worse by, certainly adding a ton of muscle mass is going to increase compression. For a lot of people, especially people that are really skinny, it's going to affect your breathing mechanics. And in a lot of cases, it's going to put you in an over breathing state where you can't relax and shut off. And when you're constantly in this revved up state and you can't go into rest and digest, you're going to end up with all sorts of issues, from sleep issues to digestive issues, all sorts of things. And whether it's autoimmune disease or trying to lose weight, you got fatigue, these are all fundamental things that you need to address foundationally. And most people get some really good results with that. So if you need my help, I have 2 communities, Vitality Brotherhood, Vitality Sisterhood, that I'm pretty active and regular on, that you can join. You can go to vitalitybrotherhood.com and sign up for that. I also do coaching. I do group coaching. I do individual coaching. If you want to contact me, there's on the recommended products and service page on Vitality Brotherhood, there's a link to book a call with me. If you find this helpful and useful, you can always buy me a cup of coffee. That's helpful as well. I'm obviously working in Nicaragua. I'm getting paid very well for a Nicaraguan, but I'm not making the kind of money I'm used to. I'm putting a lot of hours into baseball. So if you want to buy me a coffee to kind of help me out, that would be greatly appreciated. But I'm getting in more into a regular schedule now. After this next upcoming week, I'm going to have a more consistent schedule. I'm going to be able to put out more content. I usually go on Instagram every morning at the baseball stadium before practice. Tomorrow morning, I'll go live before practice because we don't have practice till midday because of everybody goes home for the weekend. So they get, I think we're starting around like things get going about 12 tomorrow. So I've got some coaching calls in the morning, and then we'll have practice. And then I'm going to start, posting more on social media, doing all that sort of stuff, which I'm not a great marketer. I'm a good coach, but I'm horrible at marketing. I'm not very good at it. It's a science all to it itself, but I just really love helping people. And I try to put out genuine information that can help people. And really the simple things are what most people are missing. I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands of people in the last 30 years. Some of them have done all sorts of insane things, all sorts of insane testing. And usually it's one or two simple things. Usually I can look at their data from their Aura ring and tell them, oh, well, we need to work on your breathing. We need to slow your respiratory rate down. And it's usually really simple things that move the needle. And a lot of times, because of the internet, because of all these fancy modalities, most people want to start off way more advanced than they actually are. So I hope you have yourself a great day. I hope you're having a great day. It's Sunday evening here. It's like 5:14. We're about, we're 2 hours. I'm 2 hours behind Eastern time. We don't do the time change. And I think in the winter, I'm only going to be 1 hour behind. We're finishing up rainy season here. Basically, winter time in the U.S. is my summertime, and then summertime is my rainy season or winter time, essentially. So it's flipped, which I'm still getting used to. I tell you what, I mean, I was living in a rainforest. I was living out in the woods. My sleep has never been better living here in Managua. I've got air conditioning, and that's a huge factor for me. So, and then having more social connection. I've got a mall across the street. Been going to movies. I've been going to the gym. So there's, I go outside every day. I'm walking outside. I'm barefoot. I do all the things. I get my sun. But there's something, the social connection part of it. You could be out in the jungle, if you don't have good social connection, if you don't have contact with people, you can be absolutely miserable, particularly the digital nomad space. A lot of people don't talk about the not getting enough interaction with people that can be very, very demeaning and very, very depressing. So, and I don't do well with free time. I need to be busy all the time. I've never done well with free time. I've always done better when I've worked. But I make sure the free time I do have, I take the time to relax. Like today, I relaxed. I went and did some shopping, ran some errands, had a good meal, watched some football at one of the restaurants here. They always play NFL on Sundays, so I go watch a little football. I got in the pool. I went for my walk. I took Rommel for a couple walks. Already worked out. I've been working out on Saturdays and Sundays because my schedule is so crazy during the week, and I also spend 6 to 8 hours in the sun, basically coaching, as you can see by my beautiful tan that I've got. And so by the end of the day, I usually work out in the afternoons, but by the end of the day, I'm just completely smoked. So now I work out Saturdays and Sundays are my hard training days when I don't have anything going on. And then during the week, I try and get in once or twice to basically get a full body workout, a feel good workout. And of course, we're using the gym with the baseball team. We've got a really good gym here that has some aerodynes. So I'll do an aerodyne session once or twice a week. I try to do some warm up every day, walk every day. So that's basically my formula right now. And at 50 years old, I'm doing pretty good. So I've also found some better restaurants here where I can get some lower carb options with higher protein, which is hard to find. So that's been good. Price Mart, which is like Costco, is literally right down the street. So I'm going to be able to go buy bulk ground beef and be able to get like things like turkey breast, like lunch meat style, high quality turkey breast, which usually that stuff's not very available here in Nicaragua. So basically that's going to be great too. I just got a big thing of coconut oil for awesome price. I love, swishing coconut oil around in my mouth. I love using it for cooking. I love using it on my skin along with Farrow. You can get Farrow. It's one of my friend, Charles Mayfield. It's his product. It's made from Laird. You can get that on the recommended products page. on Vitality Brotherhood as well. But that's enough for tonight. I hope you're doing well. I look forward to getting back on here regularly. Obviously, if you have any questions, please feel free to join one of the groups, ask it there, or you can message me on Instagram. I actually have a really good question that I'm going to address tomorrow about being a personal trainer or a strength coach or whatever you want to call yourself, physical preparation specialist. It's actually a really good question that a young coach reached out to me and asked me, and I'm going to address probably tomorrow. So have yourself a great night. Make sure you take the time to get outside, and I'll see you again soon.